Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and I am very excited to talk about this particular Smallville Rewind. This episode is titled Lineage, and if you remember this episode, you probably know why I am so excited. Man, this episode was good. It was so goddamn good, and I think it helps because, yes, last week's episode wasn't the greatest. I'm not going to say it was terrible, but it wasn't great. And sometimes when you get a not so great episode, I'm sitting here and I wonder, what's the point of all this? Am I doing this for like a solid enough reason? And full transparency, the Smallville Rewind videos aren't my most viewed reviews and videos on the channel. It's actually some of the least viewed stuff on here. So you come a point to where you think about, is this worth me continuing to do? And then you get an episode like Lineage to where I'm like, okay, yes, I don't care if nobody watches these reviews because an episode like this is why I'm glad I am rewatching it. So, at the very beginning, you see Clark is late for school. And I actually really love this opening scene because the idea that Clark is late, but then with his super speed, he zooms downstairs and he's using his heat vision to toast up his bread. And I'm like, this is great. It's such a small detail. It's such a small thing that most people probably wouldn't even think about. But it's the little things like that, which is partially why I'm so interested in these years of Clark in high school when he's younger, because that's the type of stuff you're going to do. You want to make Clark Kent at this age relatable, have him using his powers for silly, dumb, small shit. Because that's how I would be using these powers as a teenager. It was really cool. And so Clark's late, so he just kind of leaves the house. And he leaves it unlocked, which I know some people actually do this. People who live in areas, neighborhoods that are supposedly safe. Oh, nothing ever happens here. So they leave their fucking doors unlocked. There are people who they don't lock their doors until they're about to go to bed. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, maybe I just grew up in some rough neighborhoods that thought is so foreign to me. At least Clark here was rushing, so he has more of an excuse. Because Smallville may be traditionally a safe place, a safe town, but if you go off of these last two seasons, so many people have died, so much villainy has gone on in Smallville that, like, locking your doors should be a priority. But fine, Clark leaves, and then this random woman shows up on the farm. It's actually kind of creepy the way how she just strolls in there. She goes into the house, she's looking at family photos, and she's looking at Clark, and you're just kind of sitting there going, what in the blue fuck is going on here, right? And I didn't remember her, I didn't recognize her, so I was genuinely curious. Cut to Clark in school at his locker, and this lady somehow is there, and she just goes right up to Clark and says, hi, Clark, I'm your mother. And Tom Welling's performance of just like, what the fuck? Huh? And then we see him talking to the Kents and saying, yeah, I don't know who this lady is, but she's saying this and blah, blah, blah. And I like how they're handling the situation because obviously we know and they know it's impossible. It's not even a possibility that this woman would be Clark's real mother. But why does she believe it so well? It's not even like she's questioning it or she's having questions. She's flat out saying it like it's real. And you come to find out that she too had a son that was adopted through the Lionel made up adoption agency, the one that we thought was supposedly made up strictly to take care of Clark's adoption, only to find out that this other adoption was also made from this woman. And so that's actually, it makes sense why she thinks it's Clark so much, like why she's so hell-bent on it. She even goes to Lex and tells him about it, tells Lex that she had an affair with Lionel. So, yes, another affair Lionel had, cheating on Lex's mother. Surprise, surprise. But Lex has this reaction of like he doesn't really believe her 100%, but you see a part of him that thinks, "Wow, wait, so Clark might be my brother?" And just that alone, you present a movie or another show, or even if Smallville had done this, where if they made Lex and Clark brothers, I would have hated it. I have to be honest. I would have been like, what the fuck is this? However, since it's not the case, the question on them being brothers, the possibility of it, the fact that Lex is intrigued by the idea and actually deep down wants this, I found that part fascinating. The fact that there's even a scene later where Lex goes to the Kents and talks to Clark in the barn, and he's admitting that he has doubts, but you could tell by the way he's talking or why the way how he's asking Clark, is this possible? Could it be possible? Could we be brothers? You could tell Lex wants this. You can tell Lex deep down like really wants Clark to be his brother. And when Clark says, as great as that would be, Lex, it's impossible. Like, we're not brothers. And Lex has this look on his face where he's genuinely disappointed just to hear Clark say it. Clark confronts Chloe because he actually goes through her computer, sees that Chloe had been communicating with this woman because Chloe, even though she promised to stop looking into Clark's adoption, she continued to do it. We actually know that she continued to do it, that she saved that like paper or the file, whatever. And so it's good that we got a payoff to this. It's good that Clark found out about it. I mean, sure, you could argue Clark shouldn't have gone through her computer, but I liked this moment of him really being angry. You don't see Clark this upset with Chloe all that often. And he went to her and was like, what the hell? And it seemed like he was so mad that this was going to be the end of their friendship. And Chloe's reaction to Clark's anger, she seemed genuinely upset that he was upset. Like, normally I would look at Chloe and I would say, yeah, you're being annoying. You are digging too much. He asked you not to do it. Stop. Like, what are we doing here? Stop meddling. However, seeing her reaction to Clark being upset shows that this wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want to upset him. She didn't want to truly go behind his back. She literally thought that she could have helped him, find his real birth parents. Like, she thought she was coming from a genuine place. And maybe it's the way Allison Mack played this to where I felt sorry for her. She was on the verge of tears when she thought Clark was going to throw away the friendship. She said, I don't blame you. You can never talk to me ever again. Clark even had a moment where he said, if you want to find out somebody's real mother so bad, why don't you look for your real mother? Which is kind of a low blow, right? But again, he's angry, and she doesn't even get mad. She says, you know what, Clark? I know where my mother is. She just doesn't want anything to do with me. And again, it's Allison Mack is killing it in just these couple scenes where I felt so horrible for her. Jonathan tells Clark, because Clark obviously has these questions. Chloe actually told Clark that Lionel was the one that created the company, right? So Clark has questions, and Jonathan finally tells Clark, like, this is what happened. And we get an awesome flashback. Flashbacks can be tricky because they could either be great, like this, where you learn some important information, it fills in a lot of gaps, and it creates this whole lore of why certain characters have the relationship and the dynamics that they have. Or it could retcon things and completely mess things up or be confusing or be forced. But I'm glad that that's not what this one is. We see the same thing of the pilot where the meteor shower happens and the Kents find young Clark. And I like that as they're bringing young Clark off, they have the spaceship in the back of the... I don't know how Jonathan carried that damn ship. Maybe he somehow got Clark to do it, young Clark. But as they're driving, Lionel runs out into the middle of the road. Lionel is talking about how his son is out there. And I love the way John Glover played this because Lionel seemed concerned about Lex, but he almost seemed more concerned that Lex was bald and that like he could be mutilated, he could be disfigured, he could be this freak, as opposed to like, is he gonna live, And so I like that he played that. It's a subtle thing, but I totally saw what was going on there. And then a great moment of all of them like shoved into the truck together, and Lionel saying, "Can you speed this up?" And then Clark, young, uh, happy Clark, looks over at Lex's bald head, touches his head almost to say, like, "You're great the way you are," right? Like, he doesn't say anything to him, but Lex is half awake. He clearly wouldn't remember this, but he's half awake, and it's like they share a nice moment as young kids. Like, it was actually really, really nice. They get to the hospital. Lionel says, "Hey, what you did for me and my son, I owe you. Whenever you need a favor, boom, call me." And obviously that lends to, oh, Jonathan had Lionel fake the adoption. So that was great. Like, I remembered that, but it was really cool to rewatch all of that play out. The woman now wants a DNA test. She's freaking out, and she's like, "I want definitive proof that I'm Clark's mother." And I loved when the sheriff came and said, "Hey, this is just a simple thing. We can answer these questions, get her out of the way, as long as you do the DNA thing." And I love the reaction of Jonathan, especially because there's no way, they know there's no way we can allow Clark's actual DNA. Even I, rewatching it, was like, this is crazy. They can't do it. They can't give them his DNA. You see them swiping Clark's saliva, and they just leave. And I'm like, oh boy, how are they going to do this? I didn't remember. And I love that Jonathan said, "Look, we had to agree to this because otherwise they pitch a fit. But we have to make sure they don't actually get the chance to study your DNA." And I love, we cut to Clark and Pete. Our first and like only scene, I think, of Pete. Well, Pete was in the beginning in school with Chloe and Clark, but this is like the really only thing Pete does, where they go there and Clark like rips the thing off to get to his DNA, and he says to Pete, "Hey, so I need your saliva. We're gonna swap Clark's saliva with Pete's." And I know this obviously isn't the case, but imagine if they do Clark's DNA and they go, "That's weird. He turned up to be a black kid. That doesn't that's not right, huh?" Obviously, no, but I actually like this. I like that this was the plan. It was a quick and easy fix. The lady was so mad about this that she goes and confronts Lionel. And not only was this great, because Lionel didn't even know what was going on. He's sitting there at the mansion. He's blind. He's in his own world. But he remembers this woman. And even though he's blind, he has this creepy moment where he touches her face and he's almost caressing her face. He's reminding her that his wife is dead, so there's nothing she can do to like expose him. And he's almost acting like maybe he wants to fuck her again, but then he's like, "I can easily have you locked back up in a mental hospital." Like, it was such a weird, twisted mental gymnastics that Lionel was doing, that even though he's blind and vulnerable, he's still more powerful than like this woman is. And so that was wild. And then the very next scene is this woman leaving the mansion. Lex is either leaving or arriving in his car. And it was so weird. This woman just goes up to him and just shoots a needle in his neck to knock him out and kidnaps him. I'm like, what the fuck? Where are the guards? Where's the guards of the... Like, why is Lex so exposed and vulnerable? He's the richest guy. He's like the Elon Musk, or the son of Elon Musk. Either way. So Lex is kidnapped. And we do get a quick moment of Martha telling Clark about how when he was a kid, we get another flashback. This is great. Of them, Martha's telling Jonathan that she wants to keep Clark. And that's important because even though we see that when the sheriff arrives and the sheriff sees Clark as a kid and says, "Who is this?" Like, Martha in the moment quickly says, "Oh yeah, we adopted him." But she actually wanted to keep Clark. We established before the sheriff showed up that she was talking to Jonathan saying, "This is a sign, right? We can't have our own kid, but like now we can keep him." And Jonathan's kind of like, "I don't know if this is right, or I don't know if this is if we could pull this off." But this gives him a reason to pull it off. The lady has Lex tied up in this house, and she tells Lionel, she threatens that she will kill Lex if he doesn't come out and admit that the Clark adoption stuff was faked and all. And And I found it fascinating that Lionel decided not to give in, right? You could see from his point of view, he's trying to say, I can't give in to this woman. She's trying to get something from me. Screw her. I don't think Lionel even cares about protecting Clark and the secret and whatnot, because he doesn't even know about the powers. He just knows about the fake adoption. So he says no, fully risking Lex getting killed by this woman. And the woman grabs the axe and she's about to kill Lex. Luckily, Clark arrives, saves Lex, although Lex fell backwards and hit his head, of course, so he's knocked out. He misses the moment where Clark jumps in, gets hit with the axe, and the axe shatters. And the woman sees it, though. I was almost waiting for the woman to, like, kill herself, because how could she live knowing Clark's secret? So she saw the axe break, and she immediately realized, oh shit, Clark isn't normal. He's not my son. So it's this whole thing. She has like a mental breakdown. We find out that she winds up back in the mental hospital, the psych hospital, whatever. So even Martha's like, if she tries to say anything about Clark and his abilities, no one's going to believe her anyway. So, oh well. Problem solved. Who cares about the well-being of this woman? The fact that Lionel really fucked this woman up so much mentally and drove her to this desperation was kind of sad and tragic in a lot of ways. Before all that, I want to mention the scene where Clark goes to Chloe and actually apologizes to her. Once again, Allison Mack just kills it in these scenes where she genuinely appreciates that Clark is talking to her again. She even has a moment where she opens up to him and tells him about the day when her mother left with no explanation. She was like 5 years old, and how like she's still dealing with the idea that she's not good enough to be loved, and it explains a lot of her season 1 stuff with Clark, because she's really just chasing for somebody to fall for her or love her the way she probably didn't feel as a, and I'm like, man, this is deep stuff for Chloe, and I just appreciated that. We should talk about the other side plot. So Lana Lang goes to find out the man that's in the pictures, the man that apparently had an affair with her mother. She finds out where he lives. She goes there and she tries to talk to him, but he's kind of involved in his own mess. He's emotional about whatever he's talking about, and he's married, right? So he's kind of like, who are you? She explains who she is. She's the daughter of this woman, shows him the picture. You dated her, right? And he's just sort of like confused, and he's just sort of like, what? And she says, I think you might be my father, which I like the fact that she just went to it. Because so many times on Smallville, you have people who refrain from saying what's on their mind. They refrain from saying what they actually want to say or what they actually want to do. Lana just said, fuck this shit. This might be my one chance to say this. I'm going to say it. And his reaction was kind of like, oh shit. His wife is like calling out for him. And he's like, I can't deal with this. You need to leave. Like, no. And Kristen Kruick, you have great performances all the way around where she leaves the house and she's visibly upset. Like, she feels so dumb that, like, I was vulnerable. I did pour my heart out and I just got rejected, which is something that I think the Lana character goes through a lot. I know people like to shit on Lana, and I even question, like, what's the point of this sort of news story development of her maybe father in the previous episode, but I thought it worked here for her to deal with it. It was nice to see her dealing with her own stuff on her own for the most part. There was a scene where she went to visit Clark and she's talking to him. She brings up that, like, oh, I heard you had a fight with Chloe. Clark didn't want to talk about it. I like how Lana, knowing that Clark is so secretive, she's like, don't worry, she didn't tell me anything, any details. She's almost accepted that, like, Clark's just weird about telling me stuff. And I like that Clark explained himself and said that, like, this lady that showed up and claimed to be my mother, like, who does that? Who just shows up and says, I'm your mother? That's crazy. And Lana's just sitting there like, well, I mean, I kind of did that with my maybe father, and she explains to Clark her situation. I just thought that was really funny. I laughed a lot. And you get to the end, and the maybe father character, he shows up to the Talon, says that, hey, you know what? I don't know if I'm your father, but I am willing to find out. It was a nice moment. Lana clearly appreciated that, so that was nice for her. But you get this dark moment of, so Jonathan, because Clark's like, hey, Lionel helped us out with the adoption papers. Why do you hate Lionel so much? So Jonathan explains, and we get to see, I love these flashbacks, where Lionel arrives to the barn with the papers, the fake papers, confirming the adoption. Hey, I did you this favor. Great, awesome, everything's well. And then Lionel's like, oh, by the way, I need you to do something for me now. So the Rosses, Pete Ross's father, and yeah, they won't sell me their farm, their land, because they don't trust me. So I need you to convince them to do it. And Jonathan's like, well, I can't get involved with that. That's like their stuff. And Lionel's like, oh, well, it'd be a shame if the adoption people found out that this was forged. Huh? And Jonathan's like, you So basically, Jonathan was forced to work with Lionel in order to fuck over the Rosses and fuck over so many other people in Smallville who got bought out by Lionel. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Why Jonathan doesn't like Lionel, where that hatred of the Luthers came from. All justified now. And Lionel is just an absolute piece of shit. Speaking of that, there's a scene where Lex goes to Lionel and says, hey, I almost just died thanks to you. Thanks a lot. I wonder what Lex thinks happens. Because Lex didn't say that Clark saved him, so I don't know what Lex thinks happened. Maybe he just thinks the woman stopped and freaked out and didn't kill him. I don't know. But he's sort of saying like, hey, what's the deal? What's going on with this? Lionel explains, yes, he did have an affair, but he did love his mother. And, that the kid didn't survive his first birthday, the Lucas kid. And so that's it. And Lionel, very emotional about this, so you kind of believe it. Even Lex is like, all right. And then you see Lionel open up this locket thing, which has a picture of Lionel and presumably Lucas. Much older than 1 year old. He's probably like 6, 7, 8 years old. So he's lying, Lionel, that piece of shit. And Lex does have a brother out there. And I believe we will see Lucas at some point one day in a future episode. So this episode was great. Not only was it great from the actual plot, but I love the backstory we got. I love the flashbacks we got. I love that all of our main key players had interesting stuff revolving around their family, revolving around them trying to figure out what exactly the truth is of their backstory. Just all of this was great. If Smallville had only 10 to 12 episodes per season and they were all this strong, I think as much as people love Smallville now, they would love it even more. It would get so much more praise if you got more episodes like this. Anyways, let me know in the comments below if you've seen Lineage. What did you think of it? Do you like it as well? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!